My name is Olivia Chen, and I'm 29 years old. 4 days ago, I stood on stage at Netflix's corporate headquarters in Los Angeles, surrounded by cameras and entertainment journalists, as the head of content announced the streaming adaptation of the Nightfall Chronicles. "We've acquired exclusive rights to L.M. Sterling's 18-book series," she said, gesturing to me. "Total deal value is $240 million. Production begins this fall. Please welcome the author, Olivia Chen, who's been writing under the pen name L.M. Sterling for the past 7 years." The applause was deafening. Cameras flashed. Journalists shouted questions. And in the back of the room I saw them. My parents and my older sister Jessica, who'd somehow gotten media passes, stood against the wall with expressions of absolute shock. The same family who, 3 weeks earlier at my parents' estate reading, had given my sister $13 million while putting my $2 million in a trust because I wasn't smart enough to manage real money. The same sister who'd laugh when she learned I still worked at a bookstore. The same parents who'd called me the dumb one my entire life. They didn't know I was L.M. Sterling. They didn't know I'd written the 18 books that had sold 22 million copies worldwide. They didn't know that Jessica's favorite series, the one she'd been reading obsessively for 6 years, was written by the sister she'd dismissed as intellectually inferior. They didn't know that the simple bookstore job had been covered for a writing career that just became worth $250 million. Now they knew. And from the horror on their faces, they were realizing that the biggest mistake they'd ever made was underestimating the daughter they'd labeled too dumb to succeed. Before I tell you how being called stupid my whole life led to writing a best-selling series under a secret identity worth $240 million, please like and subscribe if you enjoy these stories. I'd love to know where you're watching from. Now let me tell you how 30 years of being dismissed became the most expensive misjudgment my family ever made. I'm the younger of 2 daughters in an academically obsessed Chinese-American family. My sister Jessica is 4 years older, and from early childhood, she was marked as the brilliant one. Straight A's from kindergarten through high school. Perfect SAT scores. Early admission to Harvard. MBA from Stanford. Consultant at McKinsey, making $200,000 a year by age 28. She was everything my parents wanted, the proof their strict parenting worked. Then there was me. I struggled in school from the beginning. Reading was hard. Math was harder. I couldn't memorize things as quickly as Jessica. I mixed up letters, struggled with spelling, and needed more time on tests. By 3rd grade, my parents had decided I was the dumb one. Not learning. Disabled, they insisted. Just not as intelligent as Jessica. Less capable. The daughter who'd need more help. "Why can't you be more like Jessica?" became the constant refrain of my childhood. When I got a B, Jessica had gotten an A. When I made the honor roll, Jessica had been valedictorian. When I got into state college, Jessica had gotten into Harvard. Every achievement I made was diminished by comparison. By high school, my parents had stopped pretending I had potential. "Jessica is the smart one," my mother would tell relatives at family gatherings while I stood right there. "She'll be very successful. Olivia is different. Not as academically gifted. We're hoping she can get through college and find a stable job. Maybe marry someone successful who can take care of her." My father was worse. "Some children are born brilliant. Others need more support. Olivia tries hard, but she doesn't have Jessica's natural intelligence. We've accepted that." I struggled through high school with C's and B's, feeling stupid every single day. I scored okay on the SATs, not great. My parents urged me to go to community college first to see if I could handle college-level work. I went. I studied business because my parents said it was practical. But in my free time, I read. Obsessively. Fantasy novels, science fiction, mystery, literary fiction, everything. Books made sense to me in ways textbooks didn't. Stories had logic that math equations lacked. Characters felt real in ways historical dates never did. I started writing stories when I was 19. Just for myself, filling notebooks with fantasy worlds and complex characters. I never told anyone. My parents would have called it a waste of time. Jessica would have mocked my grammar. But writing felt natural, in a way school never had. I got my associate's degree in 3 years because I worked part-time at a bookstore to pay for it. My parents paid for Jessica's Harvard education, $60,000 a year. They gave me nothing, saying I needed to learn financial responsibility. I transferred to a state school for my bachelor's degree, working full-time at the bookstore. I graduated at 24, with a degree in business management and $40,000 in student loans. Jessica graduated Harvard debt-free with a six-figure job offer. My parents threw Jessica a huge graduation party. Mine was dinner at a mid-range restaurant. "We're proud of both our daughters," my mother told everyone at Jessica's party. Jessica for her incredible achievements, and Olivia managed to graduate it all. When I was 22, still in college, I finished my first complete novel. A fantasy story about a young woman discovering she had magical abilities in a world that thought she was ordinary. I spent 6 months editing it, teaching myself from writing blogs and books. Then I researched how to query literary agents. I sent out 50 queries. Using a pen name, L.M. Sterling. I didn't use my real name because I didn't want my family finding out. I didn't want them knowing I'd spent 2 years writing a book. They'd call it a waste of time. They'd ask why I wasn't focusing on my studies or finding a real career path. The pen name was protection. A secret identity where I could fail without anyone knowing. 37 agents rejected me. 13 never responded. But one, a small agency in New York, offered representation. "This manuscript is rough," the agent, Monica Shaw, wrote. "But the story is compelling. The characters are vivid. You have natural storytelling instincts. I think we can sell this. Are you willing to revise?" I revised for 4 months. Monica sent the polished manuscript to publishers. 3 made offers. I accepted one from a mid-sized fantasy publisher, $20,000 advance for 2 books. I was 23 years old, working at a bookstore for $12 an hour, with student loans and barely enough money for rent. $20,000 was life-changing. But more than money, it was validation. Someone thought my writing was good enough to publish. Someone believed I'd created something valuable. My first book, The Nightfall Chronicles. It sold modestly. 5,000 copies in the first year. Not a bestseller, but respectable for a debut. The publisher offered a contract for books 3. I kept writing. I kept working at the bookstore. Told no one in my family. My parents asked what I was doing with my life. Working at the bookstore, paying off student loans, I'd say. "That's it? No plans for a real career?" my father would ask. "The bookstore is my career right now," I'd answer. "That's so sad," Jessica would say. "You could have done more. But I guess you're limited by your capabilities." Book 2 came out. Then, Book 3 died. Then Book 4. Each sold better than the last. By Book 5, I had a small but dedicated fan base. By Book 7, The Nightfall Chronicles had sold 200,000 copies total. I was making decent money. From royalties, about $40,000 a year on top of my bookstore salary. Enough to pay off my student loans completely. Enough to save. Enough to live comfortably. But I kept the bookstore job. I loved it. I loved talking to customers about books, recommending stories, seeing people's faces light up when they found something they loved. It felt authentic in ways an office job never would. And it gave me credibility when people asked what I did. I work at a bookstore sounded humble, unambitious, exactly what my family expected from the dumb daughter. By Book 10, something changed. The series found its audience. Word of mouth exploded. Book 10 hit the New York Times bestseller list. Then Book 9 and 8 climbed the list as new readers binged the series. By Book 12, I had sold 5 million copies worldwide. Publishers were offering massive contracts. Movie studios were calling about adaptation rights. I was 27 years old, still working at the bookstore, still living modestly, now secretly making 7 figures annually from book royalties. My family had no idea. At family dinners they'd talk about Jessica's promotion, her career success, her achievements. They'd ask what I was doing. "Still at the bookstore," I'd say. "Still reading a lot. At least you enjoy it," my mother would say sympathetically. "Not everyone needs a high-powered career. You're content with simple things, there's nothing wrong with that." Jessica started reading my series around Book 8. She'd mention it at family dinners. "I'm obsessed with this fantasy series, The Nightfall Chronicles. Has anyone read it?" I'd shake my head. "Not really into fantasy," I'd lie. "It's amazing," Jessica would gush. "The author, L.M. Sterling, is brilliant. The world building, the characters, the plot twists. It's the best series I've ever read. Apparently, she's very secretive. No one knows anything about her. But whoever she is, she's a genius." I'd smile and change the subject. Hearing my sister, who'd called me intellectually inferior my entire life, praise my writing as the work of a genius was surreal. Satisfying in a way I couldn't explain. She loved my books while thinking I was too dumb to write anything worthwhile. By book 15, I'd sold 15 million copies. The series was being taught in some college literature courses. Fan communities were massive. And I was being courted by streaming services for adaptation rights. Netflix, Amazon, HBO, all wanted the Nightfall Chronicles. I negotiated through my agent and entertainment lawyer. We structured a deal. Netflix would get exclusive streaming rights for all 18 books. They'd guarantee at least 5 seasons, minimum 8 episodes per season. Total production budget of $600 million over 5 years. And I'd get $240 million up front, plus back-end participation, if the show was successful. It was more money than I'd ever imagined. More than I needed or could spend. But it was also validation on a scale I'd never dreamed possible. The dumb daughter had created something worth $250 million. If you've ever been underestimated by your family, if you've ever hidden your talents because people wouldn't believe them anyway, leave a comment below. Subscribe if you want to hear how the secret author's identity was revealed and how her family reacted. Because what happened when they discovered the truth was everything I'd quietly hoped for. The Netflix deal was announced through a press release. My agent called me in the morning saying it would go public. Olivia, they're doing a major announcement. Press conference at their LA headquarters. They want you there as LM Sterling. This is your coming out moment. The world will know you're the author. Are you ready? What about my family? I asked. They still don't know. They're going to find out with everyone else. Is that a problem? Monica asked. No, I said, smiling. That's perfect. The press conference was scheduled for 2 weeks after my parents' estate reading. That timing wasn't coincidental. Let me tell you what happened at that reading. My parents had recently updated their will. They called a family meeting at their estate attorney's office. Jessica and I sat across from them as the attorney, Robert Morrison, reviewed the documents. My parents had an estate worth about $15 million. House, investments, savings, everything they'd accumulated. 2. Our daughters Jessica and Olivia, the will read, we leave our estate with the following distribution. To Jessica, who has proven herself financially responsible and successful, we leave $13 million. To Olivia, who has struggled more and may not be equipped to handle large sums, we leave $2 million to be held in trust with annual disbursements of $50,000. I stared at the document. Jessica got $13 million outright. I got $2 million in a trust that would give me $50,000 a year because my parents didn't trust me with a lump sum. The trust structure is for your protection, Olivia, my mother explained. We worry you might not manage a large sum responsibly. You still work at a bookstore making, what, $30,000 a year? You've never dealt with significant money. This way you'll have a steady income without risk of losing everything. We love you both equally, my father added. But we're giving you inheritances that match your capabilities. Jessica can handle $13 million. You need structure and protection. It's not a judgment. It's realistic parenting based on your demonstrated abilities. Jessica didn't even look uncomfortable. It makes sense, she said. Olivia, you've never been good with numbers or planning. The trust is actually smart. You'll be taken care of without the pressure of managing millions. What would I even do with $13 million? I said quietly. Exactly, my father said. You'd be overwhelmed. This way it's simple. $50,000 a year, adjusted for inflation. That's more than you make now. Combined with your bookstore job, you'll live very comfortably. I didn't argue. I signed the acknowledgement documents. I thanked them for the trust. I let them believe I was grateful for their realistic assessment of my capabilities. And I said nothing about the fact that I currently had $8 million in my bank accounts from book royalties. Nothing about the $40 million advance I'd already received from Netflix as part of the negotiation process. Nothing about the $200 million more coming when the deal was finalized. What will you do with your inheritance? My mother asked Jessica as we left. Invest. Most of it, Jessica said. Maybe buy a vacation house. Derek and I have been looking at properties in the Hamptons. Smart, my father approved. What about you, Olivia? Any plans for your $50,000? I'll probably just keep working at the bookstore, I said. Maybe travel a little. Nothing extravagant. That's good, my mother said. Living within your means. That's important for someone with your limitations. Jessica pulled me aside before we left. Olivia, I know the inheritance difference might sting, but it's really for the best. You've never been great at managing money or planning for the future. The trust protects you from yourself. Try not to be bitter about it. I'm not bitter, I said honestly. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. She didn't understand what I meant. 2 weeks later, I walked into Netflix headquarters for the press conference. The announcement had been teased online. Major fantasy adaptation announcement. Entertainment journalists were there, industry people, Netflix executives. And somehow, buried in the crowd, my parents and Jessica. I learned later they'd gotten media passes through Jessica's husband Derek, who had connections in entertainment investment. They wanted to see what Netflix was adapting, possibly scout investment opportunities. They had no idea it involved me. The head of content took the stage. Thank you all for coming. Today we're thrilled to announce Netflix has acquired exclusive streaming rights to one of the most beloved fantasy series of the decade. The Nightfall Chronicles by L.M. Sterling. 18 books, 22 million copies sold, a fan base that's been begging for this adaptation for years. The crowd applauded. I saw Jessica's face light up. Her favorite series was being adapted. This is a landmark deal, the executive continued. Total value is $240 million. We're committed to 5 seasons minimum. And we're honored to introduce you to the author, who's been writing under a pen name for 7 years. Please welcome Olivia Chen, known to readers as L.M. Sterling. I walked onto the stage. The applause grew louder. Cameras flashed. And in the back of the room, I watched 3 faces transform from excitement to confusion to absolute shock. My mother's mouth fell open. My father froze completely. Jessica looked like she might faint. Hi everyone, I said into the microphone. I'm L.M. Sterling. I'm the author of the Nightfall Chronicles. And I'm incredibly excited to be partnering with Netflix to bring these stories to screen. The press conference continued with questions about the adaptation, my writing process, how I'd managed to stay anonymous for so long. I answered professionally graciously while watching my family's reactions from the corner of my eye. They didn't move. They just stood there in shock, processing what they were seeing. After the press conference, I was immediately surrounded by journalists wanting individual interviews. My publicist had scheduled back-to-back media for 3 hours. I saw my family trying to approach, but security kept them back since they were in the general media section, not the VIP area. My phone started buzzing. Text after text. Jessica. Olivia, what the hell? You're L.M. Sterling? Why didn't you tell us? Mom, sweetie, we just saw the press conference. We had no idea. Why would you keep this secret from your family? Dad, we need to talk about this immediately. Call me. I ignored them all. I did my interviews. I smiled for photos. I discussed the series with journalists who'd been following it for years. And I felt more validated than any amount of money could provide. I wasn't the dumb daughter. I was a best-selling author, whose work was worth $240 million to one of the world's largest streaming platforms. That evening my phone rang 17 times. I finally answered Jessica's 18th call. Olivia, what the actual fuck? You've been L.M. Sterling this whole time? You wrote the Nightfall Chronicles? My favorite series was written by you? Every word I said calmly, but how? You struggled in school. You're not good at writing. We used to edit your papers because they were so bad. I struggled with academic writing, I corrected. Essays, research papers, technical writing. That's different from storytelling. Turns out I'm very good at creating characters and plots. Just not at writing 5-paragraph essays about symbolism in The Great Gatsby. Why? Didn't you tell us? Jessica demanded. Why keep it secret for 7 years? Would you have believed me? I asked. If I'd told you 5 years ago that I was writing a best-selling fantasy series, what would you have said? She was quiet. You would have laughed, I continued. You would have assumed I was delusional, or lying. You would have asked to see proof, then explained all the reasons my success was probably exaggerated or not that impressive. You would have found a way to diminish it, because it didn't fit your understanding of my capabilities. So I didn't tell you. I just kept writing. Mom and Dad are freaking out, Jessica said. They gave you a trust fund. Because they thought you couldn't handle money. Now you're worth How much exactly? The Netflix deal is $240 million, I said. Plus I've already earned about $40 million from book royalties over the past 7 years. Minus taxes and expenses, I currently have about $52 million liquid. The rest comes over the next year as the deal finalizes. $52 million? Jessica's voice was faint. You've had $52 million while working at a bookstore and living in a modest apartment, and driving a used Subaru? Yes. Why live like that if you're rich? Because I like my life, I said. I like working at the bookstore. I like my apartment. I don't need luxury cars. Or a mansion to feel successful. The money is nice, but the work is what matters. Writing stories that people love. That's the real success. Mom and Dad need to talk to you, Jessica said. About what? About the trust fund. Obviously they need to revise it. You don't need trust. You need full access to your inheritance. And probably they should adjust the distribution since you clearly don't need financial protection. The distribution is fine, I said. You get $13 million, I get $2 million in a trust. That's what they decided based on their assessment of our capabilities. I'm not asking them to change it, but you have $50 million, Jessica protested. You don't need their $2 million. You should just let me have it. You're not going to miss $2 million when you have 50. I laughed. Actually, I laughed out loud. Let me get this straight. You want me to give you my inheritance, the one Mom and Dad put in a trust because they thought I was too dumb to handle money, because I have other money they didn't know about. It makes sense, Jessica said. You don't need it. I could use it. Derek and I have expenses plans. $2 million would really help us. You're getting $13 million, I reminded her. And you want my $2 million on top of that. You have $50 million, she said again. What's $2 million to you? It's nothing. To me it's meaningful. Be generous. We're sisters. We're sisters who have a very particular relationship, I said. One where you've called me intellectually inferior my entire life. Where you've dismissed my achievements and questioned my capabilities. When you just found out I wrote your favorite book series and your first response wasn't, I'm proud of you, or that's incredible. It was give me your inheritance because you don't need it. So no. I'm keeping the $2 million in trust that Mom and Dad are giving me. You can keep your $13 million. And we can both live with the inheritances we were given based on what our parents thought we deserved. Jessica hung up. My parents called immediately. Olivia, we need to meet, my father said. We need to discuss this situation. What situation? I asked. The fact that you're secretly a millionaire while we've been treating you like you needed financial protection, my mother said. That's not a secret anymore, I pointed out. It was announced at a press conference. But yes, I'm a millionaire. A multi-millionaire, actually. What does that change? Everything, my father said. The trust fund, the inheritance structure, our entire understanding of your capabilities. We made decisions based on information we had. If we'd known you were successful, we would have made different decisions. What information did you have? I asked. You knew I worked at a bookstore. You knew. I was paying my bills, had paid off my student loans, and seemed financially stable. You could have asked if I had other income. You could have been curious about how a bookstore employee paid off $40,000 in loans in 3 years. But you didn't ask. You assumed I was struggling because that fit your narrative that I was the less capable daughter. We didn't know you were a best-selling author, my mother protested. You didn't tell us. Would you have believed me if I had? I asked. Would you have taken it seriously? Or would you have assumed it was a hobby, not a real career? Would you have asked to see my sales figures, then found ways to minimize them? That's not fair, my father said. You're punishing us for not knowing something you deliberately hid. I'm not punishing anyone, I said. I'm accepting the inheritance you're giving me based on your assessment of my capabilities. You think I need a trust fund. You think I can't handle lump sums. You think I need protection from my own financial incompetence. Those are your words, your decisions, your assessment. I'm not asking you to change them. You're free to give me exactly what you think I deserve. But, obviously we'd change it if we'd known, my mother said, so change it, I said. Oh wait, you can't. Because the will is already executed and Dad just filed it with the estate attorney. So I guess I'm stuck with my $2 million trust and you're stuck with having given the dumb daughter exactly what you thought she could handle. There was silence. Are you really going to hold this over us? My father asked. Hold what over you? I asked. The fact that you assessed my intelligence and capabilities incorrectly for 30 years? The fact that while you were calling me the dumb one, I was writing books that sold 22 million copies? The fact that you put my inheritance in a trust while I was sitting on $50 million you didn't know about? I'm not holding anything over you. I'm just not letting you rewrite history. Now that you've discovered you were wrong. We were trying to protect you, my mother said. You were trying to protect yourselves from the possibility that I might mismanage money and embarrass you, I corrected. You were trying to control a narrative where you were good parents who gave both daughters appropriate inheritances. You gave Jessica millions because she proved she was smart. You gave me a trust because I proved I wasn't. That was your logic. Those were your choices. Live with them. What about family unity? My father asked. What about respecting your parents even when we make mistakes? You can have family unity and respect, I said. But you can't have my inheritance money or my book. Money or any access to the wealth you didn't think I was capable of generating? You can have a relationship with me if you can accept that the daughter you called dumb is actually more successful than you ever imagined. But if you just want access to my money or to save face publicly, then we don't have much to talk about. I hung up. Over the next week, the press coverage intensified. Bookstore employee revealed as best-selling author. The Nightfall Chronicles author was hiding in plain sight. L.M. Sterling comes out. Olivia Chen's 7-year secret identity. Entertainment magazines, fantasy publications, even mainstream news covered the story. My family saw every article. Every mention of the $240 million deal. Every interview where I talked about working at the bookstore while secretly being a best-selling author. Every photo of me at book signings and literary events. Jessica called 5 more times asking me to reconsider sharing my inheritance. My mother sent texts about how embarrassed she was that she'd underestimated me. My father sent a long email about how parents make mistakes and I should be forgiving. I responded to none of them. 2 weeks after the press conference, they showed up at the bookstore where I still worked. Yes, I kept my job. I loved it. And it reminded me where I came from. They walked in during my shift. Olivia, we need to talk, my father said. I'm working, I said. Can't this wait? No, my mother said. We've been trying to reach you for 2 weeks. You're ignoring us. This is ridiculous. We're your parents. You can't just cut us off. I'm not cutting you off, I said. I'm just not interested in conversations about my money or about you adjusting your assessment of me now that I'm wealthy. If you want a relationship with me as your daughter, I'm open to that. But if you want access to my success or to rewrite the history of how you treated me, I'm not interested. We want to be part of your life, Jessica said, arriving behind them. Part of your success. Sisters should celebrate each other's achievements. You're welcome to celebrate, I said. Read the books. Watch the Netflix adaptation when it comes out. Be happy that I'm successful. But that's different from asking me to share my inheritance or give you money or pretend that you always believed in me. What do you want from us? My mother asked. An apology? Fine. We're sorry. We underestimated you. We called you the dumb one when you weren't. We put your inheritance in a trust when you didn't need it. We're sorry. Now can we move forward? An apology would mean something if it came before you knew I was wealthy, I said. But apologizing now, after you've discovered I'm worth more than you thought, isn't an apology. It's a strategy. You're not sorry you underestimated me. You're sorry you gave me less money than you might have if you'd known. Those are very different things. So you're just going to punish us forever? Jessica asked. Hold a grudge? Be bitter? That's so small of you. I'm not bitter, I said honestly. I'm just done trying to prove myself to people who wouldn't see my value if I won a Pulitzer. You spent 30 years telling me I was less intelligent than Jessica. Now you know I wrote an 18-book series worth $250 million. That should change your assessment of my intelligence, right? Except it doesn't really. Because you still think Jessica is the smart one who makes good decisions and I'm the one who got lucky with a book deal. That's not true, my father protested, isn't it? I asked. Then tell me. Who do you think is more intelligent? Jessica with her Harvard degree and consulting job? Or me with my best-selling book series and Netflix deal? They looked at each other. You're both intelligent in different ways, my mother said carefully. That's what I thought, I said. Jessica is intelligent. I got lucky. That's how you see it. Because you can't accept that the daughter you called dumb might actually be brilliant in ways you never recognized. So no, I'm not interested in family reunions or sharing my success with people who still fundamentally don't see me clearly. You can have your 13 million, Jessica. You can have your inheritance structure exactly as planned. And I'll have mine. And we can all live with the choices that were made based on the information you chose to see. They left the bookstore angry. They've tried reaching out several times since. Each time with the same message: we want to reconnect, we want to be part of your success, we want to repair our relationship. Each time I say no. Not out of cruelty, but because I know what they really want. They want to be associated with my success now that it's public and impressive. They want to tell their friends that their daughter is LM Sterling. They want access to a world I built without them, despite them, in direct opposition to their assessment of my capabilities. But they can't have that. Because success built while people underestimate you is success they don't get to claim when they finally notice. 6 months after the Netflix announcement, The Nightfall Chronicles premiered. The first season dropped to massive viewership. Critics loved it. Fans loved it. The show became Netflix's biggest fantasy hit since The Witcher. My royalties increased. My book sales exploded. The series started winning awards. I attended premieres, did press tours, lived the author life I'd been secretly building for 7 years. My family watched from a distance, seeing my success. In headlines and social media posts, Jessica's favorite series was being celebrated worldwide, and she couldn't even tell people her sister wrote it without admitting she'd underestimated me for decades. My parents couldn't brag about their successful daughter without explaining why they'd put her inheritance in a trust for being not smart enough. I still work at the bookstore 2 days a week. I still drive my used Subaru. I still live in my modest apartment, though I bought the building and renovated the units. I donate millions to literacy programs, to creative writing scholarships, to helping young writers who struggle in traditional academics, but have stories to tell. But I haven't changed who I am. Because being LM Sterling isn't about money or fame. It's about being seen for what I actually am, not what people assumed I was. My family called me the dumb one for 30 years. My books have now sold 30 million copies worldwide. The Netflix series is being renewed for all 5 planned seasons. The franchise is worth over $1 billion when you include merchandising and international rights. And I built all of it while my family thought I was too stupid to handle a $2 million inheritance without supervision. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been labeled the dumb one for not fitting conventional definitions of intelligence, leave a comment. Subscribe if you believe that there are many kinds of smart and that being different doesn't mean being less. Share this with someone who needs to hear that being underestimated isn't a ceiling. It's fuel. Remember, the people who underestimate you don't get to rewrite history when you prove them wrong. They don't suddenly believe in you when you have something they want. They don't get to claim they always knew you were capable when they spent years telling you that you weren't. My family called me the dumb one while I was writing best-selling novels. My sister read my books while telling people I wasn't smart enough for a real career. My parents put my inheritance in a trust while I was sitting on $50 million. They didn't know existed. That's not a tragedy. That's ironic. That's justice. That's proof that sometimes the people closest to you are the blindest to who you really are. And sometimes the best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's succeeding so completely that when they finally realize what you've built, you don't need their validation anymore. You already have validation from 22 million readers worldwide, and a $250 million Netflix deal. Their opinions stopped mattering the moment you stopped needing it. I'm not the dumb daughter. I never was. I was just the daughter writing stories while everyone else was looking the other way. And now those stories are worth more than everything my family accumulated in their entire lives combined. That's not luck. That's talent they refuse to recognize. Now they can live with knowing they had a best-selling author in the family the whole time and never bothered to notice. I hope it was worth it.